everybody. Thank you for joining us at another Tripwire Presents stream where we will be talking Deceive Inc. I am Molly from Tripwire, Community Manager. With me is one of my partners in crime, as always, Yoshiro, Senior Community Manager at Tripwire. Say hi, Yosh.
Hello, I'm currently the voice in the background. You won't be seeing me today.
He is a ghost. But behave or he will come and haunt you. And from Sweet Bandits, the developers of Deceive Inc., we have Barry Bandit, co-founder and creator of Deceive Inc. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
So we're here to talk about our development priorities roadmap that went out yesterday. We're going to start off with that. And then I know you guys are really here for some of the questions, so we'll be getting to those afterwards. But let's go ahead and look at that exciting roadmap we've got going on. Want to just go ahead and kind of talk about some of these points?
Yeah, for sure. We can go a bit on the short-term goals. As you can imagine, we launched last week. We are deep into looking at the top issues that have been highlighted by the community that we've been seeing in the wilds. One thing I can shout out in particular is the scroll wheel bug that has been called by the community, like just switching these gadgets and your equips go wild. That's something we've been tracking down. And we're looking at having a hotfix for some of these issues coming in as soon as possible. So that has been really our focus right now in getting the fix to the things that make the biggest frustrations really for the player base on that front. So on that side, we've got kind of just technical issues that we are sorting out. The second point you had in there is small scale balance tweaks. And when we say that is that don't expect that we're going to go with a hotfix that changes how characters behave completely, like in a short patch. What we want to do is really look at outliers from the analytics that we have internally, and just try and see if we can nudge them back into the pack from a analytics standpoint and how balancing goes. So we've identified a few of those. We highlighted them in the roadmaps. Cavalier has been feeling pretty oppressive currently, so that's something we're looking at. Her pick rate is pretty high. I suspect her pick rate will always be high. She's cool. She's got 2 pistols. People like that. They want to land kung fu kicks. That's fair. But I think she's a bit oppressive. That's something we are looking into and just kind of toning down maybe that feeling of having the predator hunt you down through the map at all times. So that's something we'll be tweaking a bit. We'll have more details, of course, with a detailed patch note on that front. And on the other side of that spectrum, another outlier that is pretty far from the pack is Ant. He's been doing pretty badly. And we have a few idea-wise. There's a few things we want to do around him. But what you can expect in the short term as a tweak is really some tweaks to make him more consistent in the ranges where he should be performing well. Ants should be a menace in close range. Like, you should be really scared. You should be really scared of seeing Ants in a small room with you. And that's just something that we think that we missed the mark on with the launch balancing. So you can expect some changes on that. And another one that is not highlighted in there, but that also pretty high in the another analytics that is popping up a bit too much is Squire. So Squire, we're going to be very light with him. We're just changing a few things on his base weapons. And really, when we are talking about weapons for these characters, we are not changing fundamentally how they work or anything like that. We're tweaking mostly kind of ammo pools, reload speed, things that make them a bit too maybe reliable in a fight, a bit too easy to pick like multiple fights in a row without having that reload downtime. I think Cavalier and Squire share that in common. They have a bunch of ammo. They're very reliable, and they can reload pretty quickly. So that's the kind of thing that we are currently looking at. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Small scale balance tweaks. That's what you can expect kind of in the short terms. We'll be keeping a look at what effects it has with our analytics. Once again, does it has the intended effect? And we'll keep addressing that, of course, in future content. Stability work on console. That's a huge priority for us. We've been going at it quite a bit. We've got some promising leads, so we'll tell you more about that soon. But really, overall, upgrading stability, especially on PS5, where we have the crashing issues that the community is being reporting us. So that's something we are really looking into and spending a lot of resources on to get sorted. Console side, once again, aim assist. So that's a feedback we had quite a bit. We did add some very light aim assist, and it was maybe a bit too light in the context of how Deceive Inc works. I don't think it worked very well in most cases. So we've been taking a look at that. Overrolling it, you can expect a pretty substantial rework to make it snappier, especially in ADS. So if you're aiming an ADS at someone, you're going to feel a bit more of that snap that helps you stay on target when your target is moving quite a bit, as tends to happen when someone's on the run in our game. So that's something you can expect to see a lot of improvement on. And of course, performance all around is something we're looking into. We'll have some shorter term stopgaps that are going to make things better, but of course there's longer term stuff that we're looking at on the performance front to just keep optimizing, and we're looking at, there's a bunch of different configs in the wild, so sometimes it can be a bit more difficult to get some performance improvements, but you can expect some first steps on that front in our very next update.
Yeah, it's and we want to thank you guys out there, the players that have been playing and that have been giving us such great feedback that has enabled us to work on these goals. And then I know everyone's excited about what's new, what's coming for the first content. And I guess we should call them like catalogs. Is that that's how we're referring to them, and also referring to, I guess, the seasonal pass?
Yeah, definitely. So catalogs, internally we call them catalog updates, but there are kind of two sides to that, right? There's the catalog itself, which is, of course, this kind of new form of progression where you'll unlock tokens that allow you to get some rewards from the catalog and progress through it. There is going to be 50 rewards with some completion rewards for people that complete it entirely. There'll be legendary skins for characters. There'll be a bunch of fun stuff that I won't spoil right now, but there's a lot to unlock in there. It's a new long-term form of progression that you'll unlock as you play the game, as you continue playing. So that's a new facet that we're adding, and we're calling them catalog update, but that's just one part of it. With them, there will be other stuff, gameplay changes, a new agent. Of course, I know that's a big topic of discussion.
Yeah.
But there is a new agent coming. It's going to be a scoundrel, that much I can say. So in the same ranks as Larsin and Madame Chou, which have been very popular characters, and I think it's going to be an interesting new wrinkle on what a scoundrel character can be. I think there's some fun new stuff we can do with the idea of being a treacherous character with some mind game potential. So that's going to be fun. On the mechanic front, we have some new stuff also coming. One of the big elements is the EAT system. And when we're talking about the EAT system, we're talking about some form of a resource that you generate when you do bad actions that Deceive Inc would not want from their agents to do. So that includes shooting down civilians or innocent NPC. Taking wrong guesses is going to build up your EAT meter. There's 3 different steps to that, and it's going to build up. So if you're being a very bad agent that just punches everyone when you get into a restricted area, you're going to build up that EAT. And it's going to vent off eventually. If you get back into cover, that EAT's going to vent off. So you can kind of use it as a resource. Like, I'm taking that guess, I'm going to hit this NPC, maybe it's a spy. But you'll need maybe to vent off sometimes, or take the risk of building that EAT and getting progressively more severe punishment for that. And we'll talk about that more in details maybe later on. But really the idea is that it's kind of that wanted meter of being a naughty spy that is not clean, is just doing a lot of collateral damage on the field. So that's what the EAT system is really in itself.
I'm really looking forward to that. We've had a lot of comments about, what if people just go around mowing down everything? Should there be some sort of punishment? And here it is. You cannot go crazy, and you're gonna have to really work with your stealth and consider risk when breaking cover and stuff like that. And that sounds fun.
Yeah, I think that's the way to see it. We didn't want it to be like it could easily be you can't play like this, right? And that's not what we want. Like we want players to be able to take these risks and be able to say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get into that room and I'm gonna punch everyone to clear everyone. Like you can take that risk, and it's gonna build up EAT, and you can try and manage that EAT. Like maybe one step you're like, I'm gonna take the risk of building one step of EAT, and that's all right. I can go back into cover and lay low afterwards. Do I take that risk to build up more? So there's some interesting wrinkles to it. A fun wrinkle we are adding to it is that downing the VIP builds a full EAT level right away, like a full chunk of a third of the tree level. So one chunk right away. So having a wrong read on a VIP and shooting him down, you're gonna get that first penalty right away from it. So it's gonna give some spicy new plays possible by disguising as the VIP. You'll be able to try and bait a bit more mind games maybe on that front. So yeah, we're very excited about it. I think the EAT system, it's gonna be something that we drop in the first content update, but I don't think it's the last you'll see of it. I think there's potential for characters using it in some way. I think there's potential to tie it in more systems in the game, make it part of some more interesting choices, maybe in how you vent off the EAT and kind of lay low, and maybe in how you can build it in different ways. So very excited about it. I think it goes very well with the rest of the game, and we can build much more upon it afterwards.
I'm a little sad that it means I won't be able to just straight up bully Yachty every time I see him, but I'm willing to give that up for this.
I mean, you can. It's just you still can, and that's the important part. But
but I'm gonna have to think about it now.
Yes, it's no longer a no-brainer to punch Yachty right when you see him. You have to ponder it for a second before punching him. So that's really it. It's really about giving choices that are not just black or white, that have some meaningful things that can happen to you if you take the wrong calls, and just really adding to the depth of the game. I think it really builds up on the systems and making them more interesting.
It's very exciting. And then, balancing update to game phases.
Yes, so that's something once again, that's not a once and done. That's something we're keeping an eye on. I think there's a lot of feedback that we receive on just the overall phases. I know and the focus on this one, to be very clear, is really on the insertion phase. That does not mean we'll not do things for the other phase later on, but we're really focusing on making the insertion phase more interesting, more fun, more rewarding, and give more incentive for players, especially in solo, to just go and do more things. I know that's a feedback that we receive quite a bit, is that, okay, I've got my, I took a guess, I got in the purple room, I've got my gold field upgrade, I got my purple field upgrade, now I'm just sitting and waiting for the vault to get opened by someone else. And that's not really fun, and that's something we wanted to give a bit more incentive to look around. So what you can expect in the first content update is to have guaranteed rewards in the room that don't have the vault terminals. So the two rooms that don't have vault terminals will have a guaranteed reward. And the way it works is that purple chest in the first phase, they'll only be in these rooms. You won't get a purple chest with a golden power-up. So you have incentive you found a vault terminal, you open it, you want to find a room without a vault terminal to get your purple power-up at that point. They also come with a key card, so either purple or the orange one, so they are guaranteed to be in a room that does not have the vault terminal. So that gives them, it really helps that you're not getting that frustration, like there's no vault terminal here, I've lost my time. No, you're going to get a very worthwhile key card. You have your purple power-up that is no longer in the room with the vault terminal in there. I think it's really going to make the first player more interesting, give you more incentive to look around and get into the looting game. And yeah, I think that's going to be a substantial upgrade to the feel. One thing that's also changing is that there will now be 2 purple power-ups in the purple room in the vaults, a bit like in the green rooms. So really the idea is if you didn't get your purple power-up in the first phase in those 2 rooms, you'll still be able to catch up, and there's more chance to get one in the vault, but it gives incentive to enter that vault and try to get your full deck at that point. So it's really all about just pushing players to make more interesting decisions, and to go in and with that, you can expect some balance pass on the field upgrades themselves. Some of them that are maybe not as interesting as they could be, we are going to buff them a bit to try and make a bit more of a tough call which one you should bring, and less of a, oh yeah, I'm going to go for this one every single match, no matter which character I'm playing. So that's something you can think about for the balance update to the game phases. Once again, there's a few other things in there. We'll talk about it a bit later on, but yeah, there's all that balancing that should make things more interesting. On the topic of agents, so the agent balance pass, I've mentioned it in the short-term goals that we are looking at the kind of the outliers, what's going on. That's where maybe you can expect a bit more, a bit bigger changes on the agents, like maybe an ability that we don't think perform as well as it should, or perform a bit too well. We'll have some mechanical changes on that front. So that's something that we are looking at feedback. We had feedback from beta that we know we wanted to act on. As you can imagine, the launch build was very close, so we were already working on that for the first content update. And same thing, we are looking at feedback around launch and just ready to tweak some things. One thing I can say that is exciting, but is mostly a behind the scene thing, is that we'll have a new system that allows us to update the game live much easier with this update that's coming. So what that means is that we'll be able to take action on stuff that we see that pops, so that the community thinks is not interesting or not fun, and be able to push updates to the balance much easier. And I think that's going to make a big difference for the overall kind of quality of the experience and the speed at which the team can answer to concerns.
That's exciting for for you guys as the devs working on it, and for the players that will get the benefits of it. Heck yeah.
And final one, team mode gameplay adjustments. So there's a few things to that. I'll talk a bit about it. I think team modes, one thing we've noticed, and that has been noticed quite a bit, is that the insertion phase goes by much quicker in team modes overall, because player can just stack together huge amounts of intel. If you find a 3 intel station, everyone grabs it, and you get basically 3 times the intel in teams if you're a team of 3. So one thing we are doing with this update is actually make sure that intel is now at a team-wide level. So if your teammates take that 3 intel computer, you can't take it. You have to split intel together as a team and coordinate as a team to open things together. And I think it adds a lot of wrinkles that you might not think about at first. It gives incentive to sometimes split up, where you can be ambushed by other people instead of always staying as a 3 stack that make those big 3 stack fights, and that kind of just snowballs into a very deathmatchy kind of deal. So I think the intel change has some other impacts that are very beneficial to the pace of teams. They open new kind of gameplay opportunities of having someone just split up from the group, get a bit of intel, meet up together, do something. They add a lot of value to key cards in teams, because intel is a bit more of a premium currency that you'll find it's a bit harder to come by.
You can't just hack all the doors now the same way. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think another fun effect is that if your team is understaffed, like you've lost a member of your team, you still have some kind of an advantage against that 3-player team, because you're just splitting between 2 players the same amount of intel instead of between 3 players. So I think it also levels the playing field a little bit in the resource management for understaffed teams. So that's one thing that's coming in this update for team mode. The other thing is around revives. We have had tons of feedback that reviving just once and then dying feels pretty bad. The idea with that is that we wanted dying in teams to have severe consequences. We wanted, of course, players to think about, like in solo, like you're done, you're out, you need to think about it. But we found that it's not fun to not be able to play with your friends anymore because you've been down twice early in the match. So what we are doing is that you'll be able to revive your teammates multiple times, but it's going to set back your max health every time down to a very low number of 30 the final time you get rest. So you'll be less and less efficient, easier to get killed. You won't be able to overpower other teams if you lost a few fights. It's going to be very hard to catch up. But you can still maybe win by using stealth, by using guile, by being able to ambush people. So it gives a bit more, I think, depth and strategy to just having kind of raising your friends, but also it keeps the high stakes of, okay, I died, my max health is much lower, it's going to make things much harder. So there's still a severe price to losing, but you'll have a bit more leeway. And one thing I think the overall idea is it's more fun to be able to play with very low health than not being able to play at all. You can still try and save the day with some nice plays. So
that's intense, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really the idea.
That's very cool. More stuff to be excited by. Chat has been pretty excited about everything that you've been talking about. I don't know if you've seen, but yeah. So after that, we've got our special classified info, which seems to be stuff that are more I guess, a longer term goal that you are working towards?
Yeah, I think one way you can see it is that, like I've said, we've been working on the first content update since we were looking at the beta feedback, and we were already working on some stuff from the first content update. It gives you an idea that we're always kind of a bit in the future in some way of what we're working on. So what you see in classified info is stuff that we have on our radar. We have varying amount of works already in these things. I won't say at which point which one is exactly currently, but we've been working on those in one form or another, and you can expect that to drop. Eventually, we'll clarify when, of course, as we get more work into that, and we'll show you more about that. That being said, kill cam is one thing you can expect. I think that's, in a game like DI, you can sometimes get got in some ways that are hard to understand. And I think that's part of making the experience more approachable for new players in some way. Like, really understand, okay, that's what he did to get me. I have a better understanding of what happened, and kind of lower frustrations, I think, overall. Or maybe sometimes, I mean, it can sometimes kill cam don't really lower your frustration, but at least you understand what happened, right? So,
sometimes they might add a little bit to your emotions, but at least you get an understanding, like you said.
Exactly. It's important to know what happened. So I think that's really what we were looking with that. We have something that's working internally, but it needed more work. We wouldn't want to put it in a state that we were not happy with. So we'll be putting more work into that in the future, and you can expect to see that drop eventually. We'll get more info on that. Next up, yeah, so new map. I think people want new operations. We've been working on something currently. I think it's going to be very cool. I can't say much about what it is. I think people will be happy about that new operation. So we'll keep you updated as soon as we have more info on that one. But rest assured, there is more content in the form of new operation coming. More agents, yeah. So as you can maybe imagine, the format that we're looking at is really when we release a new catalog update, like those big content updates, they will come with a new agent at the same time. So yeah, just expect as we get, there is a catalog 1, you can maybe expect a catalog 2, and it's gonna come with a new spy. So that's what you can expect on that front. Agents and catalogs are linked for us in development. They are coming together when we do something. And custom lobbies, I think that's the big one, right? Everyone's asking about custom lobbies.
Yes.
It's a popular topic. So it is indeed on our radar with a huge, big flag on it, like it's probably top of the radar. It does require quite a bit of work, though. So we are looking into it. We are having the internal discussions. We have some form of work on it. As you can imagine, as developers, we had some form of stuff like that to play the game. It's just not player ready. It's not player facing. It's not having all the features we want for players. So that's something we will be working on. We know you want it. We want to do it. It's just not a simple task. So just wanted to put it in there, out there, that we are indeed looking towards that, but don't expect it to drop like in 2 weeks. That's not realistic. So that's something we wanted to give an update on to the community.
It's okay. We can wait for it, I suppose. It'll be worth it. Okay. Awesome. So much stuff to look forward to, guys. And this image is out on all our social media right now. You can find it on the Steam forums and places like that. If you want to grab it and pass it around to your friends and stuff, let them know what's going on with Deceive Inc. And now we get to put Barry Bandit under a microscope and ask him all kinds of questions about his secret spy work and the rest of the dev's secret spy work. We're gonna try to get through as many as we can, but little disclosure, there's a possibility that we might run out of time. So forgive us if, but let's go ahead with the first question from Discord. Thade, forgive me if I butcher names because I am terrible at usernames. They are asking, when will the first season start?
That's a great question. I don't have an exact date to give you today. It's going to be in April. Once again, April starts like tomorrow. It's not going to drop tomorrow.
So not the first.
Exactly, not April 1st. So that's as much as I can say. But yeah, it's dropping in April next month. We'll give you information, of course, as soon as we have it kind of a more finalized. You'll get some information. We'll go a bit deeper into the update also as we get a bit closer. So yeah, expect to be kept in the loop very soon. Sadly, I can't go much deeper in detail right now.
Yeah, you can definitely count on us to, once we are ready to announce a date, we will be shouting that out from all the rooftops. Okay, and from Discord again, Dakota 0007, and we're just kind of paraphrasing their question here a little bit. Would it be possible to split outfit and headgear on agents? And they had provided an image where they took one of the player models and they kind of mixed and matched some of the looks from different outfits.
So that would be really cool. It's not trivial, though. It's a big task. That's one thing that we are always kind of looking into, and I think as we get into these kind of bigger content updates, when we update some of the stuff that we already have, that's maybe the kind of things we can ask ourselves question on. I think one of the thing is what kind of new kind of cosmetics item could be put in the game. How could they affect what we already have, build upon what we already have? I think that's the kind of things that like having a hat, for example, it could be part of that. I think it gets complicated as we have these kind of very bespoke character models that sometimes have a specific hat or specific hairstyle that is kind of its own thing. So it gets a bit trickier. What I can say is that we are looking into kind of different cosmetics with a bit more customization on some front in the probable future. So nothing to say more on that front currently. But yeah, I think as we get in major content updates, you can expect maybe some new stuff. New type of stuff, categories of unlocks that do not exist currently. Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Awesome. Okay, from Discords, Mr. Mittens Meow asks, in the future, will you be exploring other game modes? Maybe, this went off page. Maybe other modes similar to like the Ship Murder Party or Gary Mod's TTT, or other interesting stuff that you guys might think of.
So we definitely have a bunch of ideas for stuff we could do with the game. Just to I've been saying it for a little bit, but just to keep kind of expectations in check. Our very first kind of priority when it comes to game mode is making the current game mode better. So there's a lot of stuff that we are looking at that we say, there could be more depth to that game mode. There could be more ways. And I think some elements of these game modes could maybe make their way in the main game mode and kind of keep it fresh. Yeah, keep it fresh, make it evolve, kind of having some new wrinkles to the current game mode. Instead of having this separate game mode that kind of is its own thing and split the game community between queues. I'm not saying we're never going to do that. I think we have some ideas that are a bit too wild to be in the main game mode. So if these ideas that are really wild have a lot of potential, I think that it's not impossible at all. It's just that I just want to make it clear that our main focus is really deepening the main game mode, tweaking it to make it more interesting. And the way we see it internally, there's 3 phases to the game. I think every phase we can have that deep dive in. Okay, how do we make insertion better? How do we make infiltration better? How do we make extraction better? What is the problem with this phase? They are kind of almost 3 matches in themselves. And that's the kind of thing we are diving deep. How can we deepen these elements? So not saying no, we do have idea on that, but that's not going to be kind of a first-rate priority currently for us. It's really all about building upon what we already have in the game, making the game mode better, deeper, more interesting.
That's understandable. The game just came out, and we want to, hone in and perfect it as much as can. And after release, you start to get so much more feedback that, there's so much more you can do and look at now that it definitely makes sense, I think, to zero in on that first. From Cole Newend, he asks, can we get a more in-depth look at how balancing happens and what factors the bandits look for when considering balance changes to weapons, gadget, maps, abilities, etc.?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So as I've said before, I think there's a lot to be driven from analytics. We are diving into, for example, for characters, pick rates, probability of winning with a certain character. These numbers tell you quite a bit. You can see them in solo and teams. You can split that a bit and have an idea. These, of course, are just numbers, so we have to interpret them after and kind of have a deeper look. But I think they provide a very interesting kind of canvas for us to understand what's going on in the game. And one example I want to give is that what is felt sometimes and what the numbers say are sometimes different, and we have to reconcile those two things together. And one big example I have for that is that Cavalier's pick rate is pretty high. Her win probability is not too far from other characters. I mean, she's doing good, but she's not kind of in a league of her own. Like Hans is in a league of his own in the weaker part, sadly. So that's the thing that you have to look into. What I get from that is that the community find Cavaliers oppressive, but she's not necessarily too strong from a mechanical standpoint on all aspects. So we have to be very careful now we treat that and kind of treat oppressiveness without making her kind of useless. So that's something that's interesting, and I'm just giving that as an example of the stuff we have to look into, is that numbers tell you something, community sentiment tell you something, and sometimes you have to reconcile those two things together. For balancing overall, we've got sheets with, of course, all the damages, all the stats. We are having very kind of precise tools to see the differential between the different characters, see their time to kill, their shot to kill, how distance affect them, and that's the kind of thing we are looking at. And I think there's also this, I think Deceive Inc has this immaterial element that's very hard to pin down from a balancing standpoint, is that some things would be very weak in other games, or on paper are not that strong, but in practice are extremely powerful. So that's things I think Cavalier is a good example of that. Tracing people in a game about stealth is pretty strong, so that's something we have to be careful with. And it wouldn't be all that strong in other types of games, so that's something that we have to keep a look at. But yeah, I think looking at pick rate, looking at gadget, looking at feedback, we really, it might not think always about it, but we do look at the threads for feedback quite a bit and just have an idea of, even if we don't agree with necessarily what's been said, we need to know what the sentiment is around it and compare that to the number. Is it a perception thing, or is it actually a numbers thing? Because that's two very important things, and sometimes perception is as important as game feel. If Cavalier feels too oppressive, that feeling is valid, even if from a paper standpoint, it's not necessarily a problem. So I know that gets into the weeds quite a bit. I think that's a big subject for balancing, but just know that we have a lot of analytics, and the more people play, the more time is spent, the better our understanding is, because the analytics get more complete, right? The more data we have, the more precise that data is, and the better idea we can have. So what we plan on doing, and I've talked a bit before about the new system that will give us the possibility to update balancing much more in a more agile way. I think that's going to be fantastic to kind of look at what the effects are, look at the analytics. Are we nudging things in the right direction? And I think just looking at these outliers and get them a bit more in line to have a better balancing overall. And then we can dive deeper into maybe the micro things that make these things either annoying or not feel strong enough. Because that's another thing. Something can feel weak, but it's actually pretty good. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind.
And I'm glad you kind of touched on that, because, part of what I do involves gathering a lot of feedback. And sometimes it's not necessary for a player to be a complete expert at the game. They don't have to know every little mechanic that's happening and how a feature works. Often people will come at us with, this is happening and this is happening and it makes this happen, and they're very sure of it, and it can be very wrong about how the game actually works. But like you said, you are trying to figure out why they are thinking that way, and often just a player letting us know, when this happens, I feel this. Or playing this character, feels too difficult, and I don't know. But batting's not the greatest examples. But yeah, you don't have to be giving precise little details about stuff, but just telling us, like you said, the sentiment behind stuff, like what you're feeling. Like that's what you guys zero in on.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I can give as a great example of that is shot to kills and time to kill. I think that's one thing. A character can have a very competitive time to kill, but his shot to kill feels bad. Like it takes 10 shots to get that kill. It does not feel good. But from a time to kill perspective, he's actually pretty good. So if you miss anything, it's going to feel inconsistent. And that's something to keep in mind. Maybe the damage drop-off zone is just a bit too short. So when someone is right beyond that, it feels really bad to get these shot to kill. So I think there's a lot of these things that can come down to just it feels bad. And it does not... If it feels bad, it feels bad, right? I can go and argue. We can get the sheet and say he's actually pretty good, but if it feels bad, it feels bad, and we have to find why, and we have to look at perception and how maybe it's once again just a change of perception. Maybe we make shot to kills take 2 less shots, but he's actually firing a bit slower, so it's the exact same time to kill, but there's less shot to kill, and it feels better. So that's something that we have to look into. I think there's a lot of it's a deep subject, as you can imagine, and the game has a lot of elements. There's a lot of characters. They have all these different mods, so we are owning into the different things that people are looking into. But as you can imagine, it's going to take some time to just get into all of these things together. Yeah.
Right. Next up from Discord again, Hansel Pup asks, brings up that there seems to be a clear trend when it comes to gadget usage. Some are used very often, turret, bounce mat, for example, while others are rarely seen at all. They're giving the goo pod and the scrambler as an example. Are there any plans to address these? And if so, why? And I feel like this again could be like something you are talking about, perception wise.
Yeah, so I think these examples are actually pretty good. I do agree. Coupad, Scrambler, we are actually looking at them. And a few others. So yes, I agree with the overall sentiment. I think some gadgets have a very clear and super powerful fantasy right from the get-go. I think a turret is going to help you in a fight, right? You want that in there. The bounce mat, you can get in a bunch of different places. So there's a few things we're going to do about it. First, we're going to buff some gadgets that are not good enough. I think that's kind of the obvious thing from that standpoint. The Scrambler has a big change coming, and is that it's not going to affect you and your team pretty soon in the content update. That's huge because you can, in teams, kind of deny gadgets and have these pushes where the other team is gadgetless and you can do a nice push on them. So I think that's going to give a Scrambler a very clear use case, a very counter kind of gadget that's going to open up some very interesting plays. For the Goopod, we are rebuffing its slow rate, but also we have tweaked for the first content update their drop range for these kinds of gadgets. So you're not going to goo yourself quite as much. You can throw it a bit farther away, and you're not going to step in your own goo, which is, it's always bad, right? So that's
nobody likes gooing themselves.
No, you want to goo others, not yourself. And we are also having a deep look at gadget cooldowns. I think some gadgets warrant having longer cooldowns than other, and we are splitting them a bit more. So that's something we're looking into. And if we play more with gadget cooldowns, I think it also gives a better role to Yumi and her active at 50% lower cooldown. With these higher cooldown gadgets, it can make them very interesting to ever use that. So yes, we are looking at them, and yes, we do have plans to address these trends. One thing is that not every gadget is easy to address. I think some of them will stay a bit more niche, and I think that's fine. It's just making sure that they have a role, right? You don't want a gadget that has no role at all, and I think the Scrambler is close to that in the launch build, in the sense that it does have some use case, but it's clearly lacking that kind of very obvious, strong use case that makes you excited to bring it in the fight. So yeah, not affecting you or your teammate. I think that's gonna bring it quite a bit stronger, and we'll see how things go. So yeah, we're keeping your tabs on it. Gadgets are also a complicated subject because you can mix and match them with every agent. So some combinations are actually extremely strong for a very specific gadget and agent together, and they are not as good with other characters. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And yeah, expect gadget balance to be something that will evolve and change.
Because we're always watching for feedback. I skipped some questions by accident. From Discord, Stretch Dan asked if there will be more team modes for team play. And I think one of the things that has been brought up multiple times is duos. I suppose you kind of touched on this already with questions asking about other game modes. I guess if you just can briefly say that for the folks at home.
Yeah, so duo, I think it's a bit different. So duos would not change the fundamentals on the game, right? It's kind of playing teams, but with teams of two, I think it will work pretty well. There would be more teams of two than teams. From a development standpoint, it's not that big of a deal, really. The thing is, so I'm going to add the wrinkle to it. We want to make sure that if we ever do the duos, we're probably going to try it in some ways, like having people try that, see how it goes, how it plays, how it looks. I'm not too worried from a design standpoint that it's going to be a fun mode. It's really all about making sure that we don't split our queues in a way that we have a difficulty finding team matches and difficulty finding duo matches, and now matchmaking queues are worse off because we have more options. In the shorter terms, I think the kind of changes we are making to team modes will actually help understaffed teams or two players playing together with a random. Having that intel being a shared resource by a team gives advantage to leaner teams because they don't have to split intel quite as much, and they can maybe move a bit faster. They maybe stick together a bit more because they don't have to split for intel as much. So I think that's going to help. But yes, duos. Interested in doing it. We'll have to test it, see how it goes, and we have to just make sure that it does not make the experience worse. I think the worst thing we could do is just throw a bunch of queues out of the word. Here's a new mode, and here's a new mode, and here's a new mode, and now everybody's split up in different queues, and you can't have good matches going. So that's something that we need to make sure goes well.
Sure. Moving on, Discord, Jin Shushi says, how often will new agents be released? Everyone's excited for new agents. They're asking if it'll be, I guess, closer to a quarterly thing every 3 months, or I don't even know if that's something you can commit to right now with a promise or whatever. But I guess if there's anything you can say about maybe intentions or.
Yeah, our intentions. I've brushed up on it a little bit before, but so Catalog 1 comes with a new agent. You can expect when there's a catalog update, there's going to be a new agent. So that's kind of the promise that I'm making on that front, is that these go together. Now, what exactly is the pacing of catalog updates? There's going to be multiple ones. I won't say exactly the current pacing. We'll keep you updated. But yeah, you can expect multiple new agents and with a nice split of these bigger content updates. That does not mean we don't make updates in between, but they won't come with a new agent. New agents will be with these big kind of catalog updates. They're kind of the headlining that new content update.
Right. Yay! Man with a Wrath from Discord asks, why does Douglas have such a punchable face? Laughing emoji.
I actually love Douglas. I feel so bad for punching him. Yeah, he's such a softie. He's got a great art. Let's be Douglas. I don't know. I do not agree with this statement at all. I love Douglas.
Justice for Douglas.
Yes.
Carva from Discord asks, and you've probably heard this a few times already, prestige mode when? Challenge mode when?
Yeah. So I don't have a strict when. Know that it is. So we've started looking, kind of having that board of what we are looking into, what we can do. Definitely getting that kind of end game grind, making something that's worthwhile, that's fun, and giving our best player something to get their teeth into is definitely something we are looking at. We need to find the good format for it, what we want to do exactly, and how it's gonna land. But we want something that chase, right? You want something that's fun to chase forever in the end game. So yes, we are looking into it. As for when, know when to say right now, but yeah, you can you can imagine that's something we are definitely thinking about seriously. One thing I can say though, we are raising the level cap for the account with the content update of April, and there will be a reward tied to completing that new level cap coming with it. So that's one thing I can say. I won't say more than that right now.
Grinders rejoice.
Yes, so that's going to be quite the grind, but I already have some names in mind that will complete that grind quite well. But yeah, so I can say that we are indeed raising the cap for the content update in April.
It's not my life, but I understand there are some that choose the grind life, and I respect it. Team Cobble from Discord asks, can we possibly see some emotes or some more player-based social interactions in game?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Emotes, so our animators had some great interest in doing some of those. The question we always come with is, how do we handle them? You're in cover the entire game, right? So do the NPC play emotes? In that case, we have to do it for every single NPC model. Or do your spy play the emote? And in that case, you don't see it, or you uncover to play the emote. So that's kind of a nice conundrum. It's not that we have no interest in doing it. I think there's some very fun stuff that we can do with that. But we'll need to figure out exactly what. I think maybe temporarily breaking cover to do an emote and go back in cover after could be interesting. It's kind of a taunt, right?
Yeah, there's a little risk to being, I'd say friendly toxic.
Yeah.
A risk to that sounds acceptable. Because that's my guess, is that mostly it would be used after the kill or something. I guess
probably.
Yeah. Because you're right. Most of the time you are trying to be sneaky. So, like if an NPC suddenly starts flossing, like how spy-like is that? And then I guess if you're adding emotes, do you have the AIs like do that every so often too, so it doesn't stand out? Now that I think about it, there's so much to consider.
There's a few questions, right?
Right.
You have to choose a path, and they're kind of mutually exclusive, and they both have quite a bit of thinking. But just the reason I'm bringing that up is that we talked about it a few times, and we were like, how do we do it? What's the best way to do it? And I'm going to be honest, I don't think we quite know yet what's the best path forward for that. But there is interest.
Chat is saying make Douglas floss 2023.
I'm all for it. With social interaction, as Douglas, you can go in a specific spot and just floss the night away.
Floss to your heart's content.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing.
That's awesome. Jerb. I messed up your name, Jerb. Who's in the Twitch chat now, I see, asks, is there any reason why agent mastery levels are currently capped at 10? Why is there a maximum account level cap? And says that they just want to keep leveling up forever. They are saying that their level is now level 200 this morning.
Yeah, they reached a cap. I've heard about it. So first of all, grats. I think that's
wow.
I think that's world first right there.
I was like, am I reading that right?
It is right. It is true. So yeah, just to go back, the reason why we are capping stuff is that we want to give rewards for milestones. And if we just put infinite level, you'll probably be like level 868 by the time we release a new update. And how do we give you a reward for that if you're already blazed past, right? So the idea is we are raising the cap. There's a new reward for that cap, so you'll have something to show for it. But we hear you, right? The mastery thing is another thing, and I think that's where we could do something very interesting. I think it would give an incentive to keep playing an agent that you really like, that you level to level 10, and then you want to just for bragging rights kind of keep pumping these masteries well beyond. That's something we are looking at. So for sure, we hear you on that front. But yeah, just the reason for that is that we actually want to give a reward that's showcaseable, that you can show people that you've done the grind, like the inks that we currently have, like the diamond ink, showcases your absolute grind, and we want to keep outputting these new rewards. And if we put an infinite level, do we give them retroactively? We'll never be able to keep up with people just grinding away. So that's kind of why, that's the basic why of it. So we'll keep raising the cap, and we'll look into what we can do for prestiging or a form of that progression. I think one thing that's really important when I've discussed a bit of that feedback in Discord is that people don't want to lose this stuff with prestige, and I completely get that. That's not something we are looking at doing at all. But I think just having that, okay, I'm done with the gameplay rewards, now let's just get some bragging rights and have that insane number that you can showcase. I think that's what people want.
Sure, allow them to show off their perfectly healthy obsession, right? Discord Suds asks, are there any plans to add new class types other than like what we have now? For instance, the Vanguards and the Disruptors.
So no current plan to add new class types. New agents will fit within these classes, but just to be very clear, for us, these classes were never kind of a barrier to making things. They were really a way to kind of softly define the kind of archetype this character falls into. But I think what you'll discover as we get into new agents, without giving much away, is that there is leeway to what can be done. What it means to be a Vanguard, for example, I think can be expanded quite a bit, and it just comes down to kind of giving a touchstone that players know, okay, I have an idea what to expect, but don't feel like these classes hold us back from doing things that would maybe make this character pretty different from the other in that class. So we are not planning on adding new classes. Yeah, we're not planning on adding new classes because we don't think we don't see kind of a gain to kind of split up from that. I think loosely kind of the thematic that holds the character and that give you an idea of how they place in there. But once again, I think that's still pretty loose. I think with the gameplay unlocks you get, you can actually play a character a bit differently than its base role would suggest. Squire, for example, with his final expertise, is almost of a tracker. He can feel when spies are nearby, and he's got kind of almost that a bit of a tracker DNA with him. So that's never something that held us straight into a line. Madame Shu, she's a bit of a tracking ability in some of her passive. So don't feel like this is holding us back or pigeonholing spy in a very specific role. We are ready to do some wild stuff within these existing classes for sure.
Awesome, as I like to hear it. Let's see what else we got. Spiral from Discord has 2 questions. The first one is, Insertion Phase is arguably the most exciting and unique phase of the game when everyone is sleuthing about and trying to get info on other teams, but it currently can be over rather quickly with teams rushing certain vaults or just diving on other teams. Are there any plans to extend the phase or encourage stealthier gameplay? And you have kind of gone on about some changes that you have. It's exactly going to help with this, and then intentions of it, further in the future. So go ahead and I guess.
I think that's so. Yeah, I think the answer is yes. We do have plans, and I think some of them will come online in the first content update. So when we're talking about team rushing certain vaults, I think the intel share changes does help quite a bit with that, because it's almost it was 3 times the intel. If people were stacking intel together, they could blast through things. So that's something that we are changing. And yeah, encourage stealthier gameplay. I think that's precisely what the EAT system is all about. So that's also right into that thing. So yes, I think it's a bit kind of it's a bit more complicated. Sometimes some changes are really phase specific. I think some changes are kind of game wide, right? I mean, that each system, it won't just affect the first phase. It's going to affect every single phase, but I think it will lead to the result of having a bit stealthier gameplay to the start, considering a bit more your picks, who you should shoot at and when to wait and have more kind of evidence that this might be a player. And yeah, it's going to slow down teams a bit in the insertion phase for sure. Now, I agree with everything that's stated there, that it is a goal that we've discussed a bit in the past to have a better handle on the time the insertion phase takes. I think currently the way it works, and I'm not saying any changes on that front, that's something we are still testing internally, but one way the insertion phase plays out is that it can either go extremely fast because random can do that, or it can take a lot of time, especially in solo, for example, when people don't find the terminals or there's a lot of fighting going on. So there's a lot of variance. That variance is pretty wide. One goal I'd like to have is close that variance a little bit. Like have the shortest round be longer and have the longest round be a bit shorter to kind of have a better handle of how that phase plays out. Now, that's not an easy goal because we want players to have the control on it, right? You don't want to remove the player agency of turning off this terminal and opening the vault. I think that's core to the first phase, but that's something we are seriously considering. How can we remove a bit of that variance? We tried some stuff we didn't like after a few playtests internally, and we were like, scratch that, this is a bad idea. And some stuff that we like that we wedge either in this app that we're working on in the future. But yes, I think we do want to expand the shorter rounds and make sure we have less of these either super short, it's over in the blink of an eye, and these very long, nobody's going for the last terminal, what's going on, that are maybe a bit rare, especially in teams, but they do happen too. So yeah, that's something we are looking at.
It's funny you say that. Is no one going for the intel? Like, what's happening? I've been in plenty of games, especially solo. I tend to gravitate towards solo because I feel like they tend to be the stealthier, a little bit of a longer game. And there are times where I'm like, no one's grabbed the intel. Either people are camping it or what's happening. And then it scares me. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there is kind of these outliers in both sides, and I think it's fine. It's core to the game, right? We want players to be able to do stuff. Like if you prefer to be a bit more passive, a bit more stealthy, that's all good. But I think there is things we can do to kind of try and reduce that variance, and that's something we are looking into. Even if I don't have kind of the definitive answer to give here today, just know that that's the kind of stuff we are trying internally and getting some data on.
And their second question, and I'm pretty sure this was asked multiple times, and there's a few of these questions that ended up being like kind of paraphrased or other questions kind of combined, or it's taking the place of a repeated question. And this is definitely one of them. Would it be possible in the future to pick our preferred server regions when matchmaking? For example, pick that they want Europe or North America East, things like that.
I am very happy to say that the next hotfix that we'll be pushing will have something like this. So we'll have new settings that will allow you to prioritize if you want the best latency in matchmaking or the fastest matches, for example. So you'll have more control over that. Going with best latency, we'll try to match you with the closest to you possible server. Do know that it will affect matchmaking time because we'll be trying a bit longer to get you that best latency. But it is something you'll be able to choose, and of course we'll continue reading feedback and see what we can do to give a bit more customization to the experience on that front. But yeah, it's coming soon. That's we heard you. We saw a lot of feedback on that one, so we wanted to move fast with it, and we'll maybe build up on that later on if we get more feedback of more stuff that you want on that.
I know I'm excited to spread that news. All right, now we're dipping into some of our Twitter questions. From Twitter, Fakisha asks, can we get a superhero cosmetic for Dash? Squire. Please, and yay, aim assist is coming.
That would be great, right? That's all I'm going to say. I'd love it. I'm a big proponent for more Squire skins. So, yes, I am definitely... Yes, I'm definitely waving the more Squire skins flag in-house. So rest assured you have a powerful ally in me for the Squire skins agenda. Yeah.
And their second question is, a content creator program for agents who produce a lot of content for the game is something, I guess, they've seen others doing. Is it something that we would be interested in doing?
interested most definitely. I don't think we have anything kind of concrete in set in stone right now. So that's something I think would be very fun. We have a very like we've seen with the great video they've done for us for launch. I think the content creator community that we started having for the game is super involved. We love having their feedback. We love having them around. And so yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. Now a timetable, what that would look like, what exactly it is, I don't know currently, but there is definitely interest, I think, from us in doing something like this in the future.
Space Mantis from Twitter says, would a short replay system for games ever be possible? Being able to see everything from all perspectives in order to analyze games, sounds. But being able to analyze games sounds fantastic. So I guess sort of a demo record type thing, I guess, is the old source way that they did it or something.
Yeah. So it's complicated. It's not an easy thing. I think the kill cam is in a way a bit of a stepping stone in that direction, in the sense that it does function a bit like that. But it's in no way kind of, if we do the kill cam, this is done, like, not at all. I'm just saying that it's kind of there's a step that's been made with kill cam work that could go into something like this. I think that would be kind of a much farther down the line kind of thing. For the analysis, one thing I can say is that we've had some work on an internal tool where we see the map from above and we see where player moved in that map during a match. So we can have an idea of the heat map of where players in the map go, and so we have a good idea of, hey, nobody ever goes in there, or absolutely everyone kills each other in that spot. So that's interesting, and that may be something that could be leveraged eventually as kind of a match recap.
That's very cool, yeah.
Yeah, it's still very early though, even for us in dev. It's just something that was kind of a pet project on the side from one of our engineer, and it's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of potential into that. So nothing in the short, like we've had this classified kind of, this is a bit of a longer term stuff. This would be even more longer term, but I'd say never say never. I think that would be really cool. It's just big amount of work to make it work correctly, right? You want that replay to be representative of what happened, and that's where we run into a lot of hurdles technologically.
Yeah, I imagine even a lot of investigation has to be done before, like, even starting on something like that.
Yes, definitely.
From Twitter, Nikki asks, will there be a theater mode, spectator mode to view matches? I guess this is kind of different. But they're asking because they're looking to make skits once custom games are released.
Yeah, I think that's something that's interesting. I mean, I see kind of no object. So when we do get to make custom games, I think one thing that I would like to do is, okay, we get custom game working. Like that's step one. You can get a custom game. You can get your friends and play a match of DI. Beyond that, though, that would be fun to kind of build upon some of the features that we have in there. I think that would be a fantastic feature, like just being able to join that match as a spectating overing camera that you can just move around and take shots. I mean, why not? That's pretty fun. The drone is almost that in a way, just in some way. So that could be something that can be leveraged in some way. I think there is great potential to make kind of fun role play or fun videos from that. So yeah, I think that's the great suggestion. The way I see it is that we need to get custom game working, and then maybe there's some fun stuff that we can build on top of that.
And then from several people, I suppose, will it be possible to matchmake between other controller users in the future? I'm kind of unsure exactly in what way they mean.
Yeah, probably matchmaking by input type or something like that. So that's not something. One thing we are currently looking at, just to start the conversation, is something that we could do is add kind of a search between console user first, kind of that first matchmaking net to try to get more kind of balance matches between the input types, and then expand that if we don't find a match, and kind of expand the matchmaking. That's a possibility. When we're talking about matchmaking, first, it's not my domain of expertise, of course. Our backend engineer knows much more than me on that front, but that's something that we have constant discussion of. How can we make matchmaking better? What can we add? We've talked about the latency. That is something that we've turned around pretty fast. There is stuff to look into in there. I don't have anything to kind of announce on that front right now, but we'll keep looking at that feedback and see how it evolves. I think the risk with matchmaking, as always, is that we need to make sure that we are not making matchmaking extremely long by adding too much kind of, there's so much ifs, and the way it's made, finding a match is not fast, and you don't get kind of optimal matches. So yeah, there's a lot involved in that question. That's something we're keeping an eye on, and even if that's not exactly what we're doing, we'll maybe be doing other kind of stuff that goes in that direction in some way, without being kind of that playing with controller only feature that's listed over here. That would be kind of of course, a limiter in some way to the matchmaking pool that you have.
And then this question from the wild-hearted Foxhound on Twitter says, I saw private lobbies on the sheet. That's great. And then they asked about duo lobbies. You touched on that. But they also asked, will there be a way to earn premium currency in the future? And they want to make sure that you guys know that they are living the game.
First, thank you. Second, yes. So the catalog 1 in the free track, you'll be able to get some premium currency. So there are some bonds in there that you'll be able to unlock. So they will be getting some, and as you can imagine, in the future, that's probably something we'll keep on doing. So you'll be able to amass a few on that front. We are also looking at something else, which I'm not going to say yet. That might make its apparition. There's some things that we'll be able to try that we've yet to try in our internal playtest, but we have some setup made on that front. So maybe we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I do like the idea that players are able to earn some bounds by playing the game. So yes, but to what extent, there's still some stuff that we need to iron out.
Secrets. Vel from Twitter asks, what are some of the potential changes you have in mind for making adjustments for the countless NPC lives lost? They don't have to be completely concrete. Just curious about some of the proposed approaches. And this is where the heat system, I suppose, comes in.
Yep, absolutely. I think the heat system is kind of the baseline foundation for that. I don't think it's all of it. I mean, there's some other things that we are going to tweak. I think part of that, if I remove the heat system, which is kind of the big answer to that question, I'd say, I think heat system is my first answer. If I go a bit deeper underneath the heat system, I think there's some just balancing tweak and stuff that we can do that makes taking wrong guesses feel a bit more dangerous. I think some players are getting so good at the game that they feel so safe in taking these wrong guesses. And the heat system is helping in that, of course, because the way we built it is that heat system, the building heat, it's going to be an handicap in a fight. So it's really kind of, if you get that heat up quite a bit, you're going to be more vulnerable to enemy attacks after taking these wrong guesses. So one of these situations I can have you imagine is someone is in that green room that you see in Diamond Spire. You see them through the glasses. They start punching every single staff. You see them proc that heat kind of effect, which make them vulnerable. You can go in there and take them out much quicker because they take more damage at that point. So that's kind of the idea. I think the thing that makes people feel safe is they think that they can win any fight that someone's going to take on them, even if they shoot every NPC. I think the heat system makes it that it's the great equalizer, right? If you don't play by the rules, you're going to take more damage from someone taking you out, and it builds up by the heat gauge. And at the final level, it's pretty wild. At the final level, Carva is talking about a challenge mode. I'd say challenge mode, stay in full heat mode for the entire match. Good luck with that. It's very very punitive. but it's Garva. He might win anyway in 2 week. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that the eat system kind of penalty also affects how guard attack you. So if you build up to have extra damage, guards also deal you extra damage. So that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, I think the eat system is the big answer. Some other tweaks that we do here and there to the overall balancing, just to make sure that we keep. It's always the balancing act. You don't want to die instantly when someone figure out your spy. You want that chase to be possible, that you can run away. Right. The eat system gives us a bit more leeway, right? If you're not playing the rules, if you're actively shooting NPCs time and time again and not letting that eat vent off from time to time, well, you're going to be a much easier target for other spies, and I think that's really how we see it.
I like it. Very cool. Well, it's about time to wrap up. I don't know if you have time for me to ask chat for a couple questions. If you got to go now, doesn't matter. Up to you.
No, I'm good. I mean, everybody in the studio went out to the restaurant. I'm alone in the office, so I've got all the time in the world.
Behind. It got food?
They got food. I've got food here. No worries. Don't worry for me.
Okay,
we'll take a few questions from chat for sure.
Okay. Now chat is spinning. Okay. Let me catch. Will you be able to buy subsequent catalogs from the currency earned via buying and completing your first one? Okay, so this is where it kind of comes in where you talked about the possibility of grabbing some bonds off the actual catalog passes.
Yes. So the answer is yes. Simply, it's going to be buyable with bonds. You'll earn bonds in the catalog. So same currency. It's not a new secret currency to buy catalog. It's going to be bonds. So yes, is the answer.
Yay. Let's see. Someone asked if you have any info about a solo mode XP boost. I guess they are requesting that.
Yes, it's in the next update. So it's in the April update. You will gain there will be an XP modifier for solo matches. The idea behind that is quite simple. In team, you share a lot of XP sources that are worth quite a bit of XP. There's only kind of 4 different factions in teams, while in solo you're competing against 9 different factions. So your chances of winning are lower also. So it made sense for us to just kind of give that boost to XP sources in solo. So yes, come the April update, you will gain more XP from solo matches to kind of reward you for that added kind of danger of being alone.
Cool. And then one thing I've seen asked a few times is if you guys would ever look at or consider adding mouse and keyboard support for consoles.
Yeah, that would be great. I think nobody's against it. It's really a question of priorities, I think, in what we're looking at. So yeah, I think that would be good. It's something that would be very nice to support in the future.
Somebody asked if you will add more skins that we can get with if we'll be adding to the pool of cosmetics that are free, as well as new ones that are for bonds.
Yes. So in multiple ways, you'll have the catalog pool of new cosmetics. There will be, as we add a new agent, you can imagine they come with all these non-bonds cosmetics. I'm just trying to dodge exactly what agent that is. But yeah, every time we add a new agent, they come with a bunch of new cosmetics that you'll be able to earn, like you are doing currently in the game. And yes, you can expect new inks, new stuff coming in that are not store exclusive, that will be earnable with soft currency from the menu. So yeah, we will continue expanding the overall pool, and these will also go in the loot briefcases that you get from leveling up. As we raise level cap, you'll be able to get new ones, and these new items will be in that pool.
Because as a spy, you gotta look good, right? And we want to enable that. Somebody asked, why are the portrait images in the bottom left mirrored?
That is a great question. It's the way it's the magic that we do it with, and eventually we're like, do we try to fix it? It's really visible with Madame Shu since the eye patch kind of switch eye.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a little more subtle. I'll deflect by saying it's a very deep lore reason, and you should look into it.
Okay.
Yes.
Pushantier, who you might have seen in the community, asked, "Did you nerf Hans because of me? And if so, why?" Crying emoji.
No, I mean, yes, maybe in the closed alpha one, where he was kind of absolute peak. Afterwards, not really. I think Ants. So it's always an interesting question. It's not that we hate Ants at all. We like Ants. We have a cardboard cutout of Ants here in the office. It's not that. I think there is a. Shotguns are complicated is the overall kind of answer to that question. And when you mix that with an ability that lets you slow down people, you can easily see, I think, how it can get really out of hand, pun intended with Ans's hand. But really, it can get really complicated to balance. You often fall with shotgun characters, especially in a game like DI, where you kind of you ambush people from very close. A lot of the time, you can fall in shotguns, make the fight over instantly without any aiming involved because of the pellets, or you fall in where Ants is mostly right now, which is he feels really inconsistent because depending on how many pellets you hit, the distance, it can scale quite a bit. I think it's not at all that we have something against Ants, is that it's very hard to get that middle ground that you want, and even harder to get that his 3 weapons have a different identity and have a different kind of use case. So we'll keep tweaking Ants. I think we have some very clear stats on him right now, and we want to see him rise in that probability of winning percentage. And we'll keep an eye on it. So the first thing we'll do with him, it's still gonna go. But no, rest assured, we are not looking at Ants specifically with a photo of Pushantier but red next to it, and we're like, it's enough, Pushantier, it's enough. We got you now. No, we're taking a look, and we'll be buffing the poor Ants in the future.
And then. I'm going to paraphrase this question a bit. They're curious if you have looked at things like rebalancing or reworking the progression systems for the spies, specifically how much time it takes to get to weapon 3, or addressing how players feel about having to use weapon 1 versus weapon 2, or if you want them, do you want them to be the third one is the one that everyone wants and everyone sticks to, or is the goal more to have just equal options across the board?
Yeah, I think so. So I think that's a very multi-layered question. So first, reworking the progression system, I think we've received a lot of great feedback on the stuff that could be done about it. That's not kind of an easy thing and not a shorter thing. So if we do want to rework our progression system work, that's something that I'd look into kind of in a farther future. How do we kind of rework that to make sense? I'm not saying we will do that, but I'm just saying that if we do look at that, it will need to be kind of a bigger, longer term thing. To go back to the weapons, so the idea is that, and I know that's not true for all spies currently, and that's something we are looking at, but these 3 weapons should have different use cases, and of course you might prefer one over the other. You might want to play, for example, playing Squire as a kind of rush-down character, very close range, so you like the burst one the most because it fires fast. Or you might want to have a bit more range for your Squire and play the Javelin to kind of like bigger headshots. The idea is really this. We want the 3 of them to have different use cases and enable some different builds. Currently we have some weapons that perform better than we expect them to. But the idea is weapon 3 should not be a straight upgrade to weapon 1. It's a side grade. It's something that's going to play differently. If it is, that's something we are currently looking into. Some weapons are maybe a bit too strong, or they offer a different enough use case. So that's something we'll keep looking into. So if we go into layers, I think doing that first is gonna make things better because every weapon is valid and interesting to use, then it's not as much of a challenge. Like you don't need that last weapon. It's just that it's gonna open a new playstyle for that character, right? But when we're talking like that's the first step. If we do find that we have like I don't know a lot of feedback still that people want kind of be able to play all weapons, I think there's things that we can look into in the further future. But that's not something we are planning currently. I mean, the game has been released kind of last 2 weeks, so we're not kind of planning a full rework of progression as we are right now. But we are keeping an eye on things, and just to be, the intent is that these weapons are not upgrades; they are side grades that change how you play. Of course, you might prefer a way to play, and you'll always prefer the weapon tree because it is that way to play that character. But the intent is not that on paper it's a strictly better weapon. So that's something we are keeping an eye on and tweaking.
And a few of these I'm skipping because you may have missed them. They have been addressed in one way or another. So I encourage you guys to check out the VOD when this is over to find some of those answers. Yeah, lots of questions. Rank mode, stuff like that. We did talk about that. Interested in it. Got to work on other priorities first. Let's see. Here's a question. Why does Yumi's heal also heal enemies when the description says it heals her and her allies?
So, yeah, we are updating the description is the answer. The longer answer is that Yumi heal is extremely strong in teams and it needs a counterplay, which is a team to push inside that bubble and push her and her team out. If it did not heal enemies, it would be absolutely incredibly overpowered, and I still think it's a very strong ability as it is currently.
It is strong.
It is extremely strong even as it is right now. So yes, we are updating the description. We have a few descriptions that, as you can imagine, we are not kind of holding ourselves to make changes that are beneficial to the game just because we can't update the text right now. So sometimes there are some mismatches. We are catching up to them. In the update, we'll be addressing a few of them. You can also think about spyglass raising allies. That was something that did not exist before. That's something we added later on. So we are catching up and addressing some of that stuff in there. So we'll be addressing it. Of course, we are not trying on purpose to make descriptions not informative enough. It's just that sometimes we push a change or we made a change or we were not sure we would stick with something and it's actually a better idea after testing. And it does not make it in time for a cutoff in text. So yeah, that's the basics of it. It will be addressed in the description.
So I have a few questions asking for about the possibility of getting more stats at the end game page, possibly getting to see how much damage they've done. As well as other things that they've maybe interacted with or NPCs, amount of NPCs they killed, just other details.
Yeah, that'd be great. So one thing we have the result screen is changing quite significantly in the first update, but it does not have all these new stuff that they're discussing. So that's maybe something we can work on in the future and keep building upon. But yes, the framework of the result screen is changing. In the update, you'll have better idea of what progress you've made on all different XP tracks, and also exactly how much soft currency you gain from that match, which is not clear currently. Like you go back to the main menu, you're like, oh, I have more soft currency. I have no idea how much. You'll see all that very clearly with the rework coming in the content update. But yeah, I think that's great. I'm personally also a big fan of that. I love having more stats to what I've accomplished in a game. So yeah, that's something we'll keep an eye on, how exactly we present it. I think that's still up in the air. That would be great, yeah.
Another question about more skins with game yeah, you answered that. Answer is yes. Okay. I guess one that's being asked quite a bit is if you are still looking at controls when it comes to controllers, if there'll be more abilities to make some adjustments themselves. Just, I guess, more features when it comes to customizing how you play with a controller.
Yeah. So once again, so that's kind of a priorities things. Like we really focused kind of the on the aim assist question that was very present recently. But definitely we have a lot of feedback on controller that people want to tweak more in-depth stuff like dead zones for how the quick rotation kicks in, that kind of stuff. I think that is really something we want to go deeper in so that they can customize their experience more. Even for keyboard and mouse, I think there's a few things we'd like to wedge in there for more kind of customization to overall control. So yes, that's something we are looking at. That's something we'll be diving into. What are the odd topics that the community have as kind of, I really want to tweak that. I think that's super interesting to keep that feedback coming. That's really how we prioritize stuff. So yeah, keep it coming. Give your suggestion of what you'd like to tweak on that. And as we go through these priorities and get closer to fixing kind of the odd topics issues, we'll be able to go more into quality stuff, quality of life stuff, and what can we do to make the experience more customizable at that point.
Yay! Well, thank you so much for your time, Barry Bandit, and thank you to chat for your time. Thanks for showing up and listen to us nerd out over Deceive Inc. It was fun to hear all your questions and fun to hear Barry be able to spill some details. And we're all very excited about what's in the future for Deceive Inc. Be sure to help us spread this video around, and because there are a lot of questions that have been answered here. We will make sure we get a link out to the VOD to the community as well. But yes, thank you guys. Enjoy your weekend. And I don't have a clever spy saying to end with, so I feel like I failed. I'm sorry. Ninja smoke bomb out. Hans and Busy out. Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a nice day.